Welcome to part 2 of Figures Podcast, where we continue to interview David Manica of Manica Architecture. In part 1, we learned of his entrepreneurial journey and his fascinating business philosophies and strategies. Sit tight while we learn how David and his team built one of the most spectacular and iconic stadiums, Allegiant Field in Las Vegas, Nevada, more affectionately known as the Death Star.
Welcome to Figures Podcast. In today's episode, we will be talking to David Manica with Manica Architectural Designs, known for his prolific sports and entertainment venues, including the new Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. I am your host, Chris Jones.
So, this is really awesome. One of the things that I wanted to know is that that's one of the large, would you say that's the largest 3D printed
object in the world?
Okay, can you talk about that?
Yeah.
And then how you got it in here?
Well, it came in pieces. So here's how this worked. The torch over there was one of the most important signature design elements of the whole project. It was one of the most important parts of the stadium for the owner, Mark Davis. And we designed a shape, and then we had to figure out how to make it. And he loved the shape and needed to be that, but then figuring out how to actually fabricate something that is bending in three directions basically, that's also 87 feet tall. How do you do that?
Right.
And so the fabricators of the torch element figured out that they could use the largest 3D printer available on the market in the world to print basically gigantic blocks. They're like the size of automobiles, and with a tolerance between each block that's less than the thickness of a credit card.
Wow.
And then assemble them all on site to become one monolithic 3D printed object.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is phenomenal. So in a lot of ways, the stadium, from the roof to the field to the torch, is a testament to bright minds, engineering, and today's technology.
All right, so one of the things I'm really excited about is the field and how it kind of was incorporated into the design and some of the considerations that you had when you started that project. Can you talk about it?
Yeah, it's a complicated and definitely interwoven series of decisions that began basically with the owner saying, we must play on natural grass. He did not want to play in his home building on artificial turf. So we knew from the very beginning we would have a natural grass field. The other thing we knew, because it's in Las Vegas, is that it had to be an air-conditioned building. Well, the second you put a roof on a building with natural grass, growing the grass becomes very, very problematic, if not impossible. There's just not enough sunlight coming through this building right now to grow real grass. So then we had to figure out a way to grow the grass. There are different methods of growing grass in trays and things like that. But the most effective way is to just move the field out of the building and grow it out in the daylight with irrigation systems and everything. And then when you need it, pull it back in the building. Well, that sounds easy, but it's an incredible feat of engineering, right? So the entire field is in one tray. It's about 4 feet deep. And the 4-foot depth has everything you need for the whole soil system for the turf. By the way, when you grow a professional football field or pitch, as you call it in soccer, the entire system is multiple feet deep. It's not like you think of grass being only 6 inches deep at your home, right? So the entire system is in that tray, and the whole tray moves out. Now, then the problem was, where do we retract the tray? It had to go through either end of the building, not the sides, right? We weren't going to retract it through the side of the building. It had to go through either end. Now, if I pushed the field that way towards the strip, then the stadium would have to slide away from the strip.
Okay.
And then the field would be on the north end of the building, which is not ideal from a sunlight standpoint. But it also means that the stadium got further away from one of the best views in the league, which is the view of the strip. And we knew that the torch had to be on this end as well, because the torch had to be a part of the experience that is pure to Las Vegas. So knowing that the torch was there and trying to push the stadium as close to the strip as possible, we knew that the field tray had to go out the south end of the building. And that's also better because when the tray was at the south end of the building, it would have the most amount of sunlight, which means it would have the healthiest grass. But then the problem with that was we were bringing this gigantic field tray, this literally the size of a football field, under the heaviest part of the building. Because you can see over there, there's 3 decks of people there, 3 different levels full of toilets and concessions and escalators and elevators and people. And the tray has to go under all of that. So that entire end of the building is essentially a bridge with nothing under it. And that allows the tray to go completely under the building and outside. And so then the last sort of key to unlock this real challenge was that we have columns that are on hinges that drop down when the field is not in motion. So the field can only be operated when the stadium's empty. That makes sense. That's a reasonable sort of consideration. And that when the stadium's empty, it is at its lightest because it's not full of people. The live load, we call it, the weight of all the people in the building. So that's when the field can operate in and out, and that's when the columns on hinges lift up so that the field can slide under this bridge of a stadium and outside. Then, during a game, the columns hinge down and actually bear on the ground, and the additional weight of the people is held safely by all the additional columns.
So it's not just the field, it's actually structural in nature.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think the field takes about 45 minutes to move.
That's not
full
bad
length.
considering the size.
It's not at all. Yeah.
Do you know how much it weighs?
There's a number out there. I'd have to find it. It's
like the weight of the moon?
the weight of the moon, yeah, basically.
I like how you said that earlier.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting to know that, the actually removing components that'll support the live load would be challenging, but hasn't been done before, right? I mean, is
Right.
this a new kind of concept, and did you guys come up with that?
We did come up with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the key. That was really the only way to solve the problem, to have a column-free, bridge-like building that could also support the dynamic live load. Because don't forget, it's not just the weight of the people, but the people might be dancing or jumping, and that creates frequencies in the structure that need to be supported. And so our solution to have these columns that come down and brace the building under that kind of dynamic load, while also being allowed to lift up and allow the tray to come out successfully to the south end of the building, was a key decision and a key turning point for the success of the whole project. So I was telling you about the columns that drop down. That was a really significant moment with regard to our interaction and our approvals with the city, because not too many buildings have columns that hinge away. It took a lot of trust and a lot of coordination and a lot of faith with the city that our idea of letting columns that they don't support the building, but columns that are necessary with regard to the live loads of the project could be retracted so that the field could be pulled out of the stadium. That's just one example of the kind of integrated teamwork that needs to happen to make these buildings realized. I'm really lucky in what I do. I get to be the lead designer of projects like this. But the truth is, it takes an army of people to put a building together like this. One of the analogies I love is that like a cathedral in Europe took 1,000 years to build, right? And so we're really fortunate in our day and age to be able to start and see the completion of a project like this in a period of 36 months. I mean, think about that. That's phenomenal. When it was like 1,000 years ago, you'd lay the stone of a building and then you wouldn't get to see it finished. There's that incredible sort of magic that we get to sort of realize and witness today. But the other thing is the extent of manpower or person power that goes into building a building like this is almost impossible to quantify. The fabric comes from Europe, the steel comes from Asia or the US. I think all the steel from here came from the US. People, thousands of workers, local workers putting together the project. So to be the guy that gets to sort of design the idea of it, it's very special. But at the same time, it would never happen unless the integration with the city and the approvals of the local policymakers and the support financially of the team and the government, and then all the thousands of workers that sort of come here every day and sweat it out in the desert sun to put a building like this together. It's incredible to be a part of, and to be at the tip of that spear.
That's awesome. It's pretty amazing. I love it, obviously, and it provides a really good experience for everybody. One of the things I'm curious about is you wanted to design for the fans too, right? And let them have a unique experience, and also the players, I'm assuming. Can we talk about both of those?
Yeah. The interesting thing, and one of the reasons I love designing stadiums and arenas, is because there's so many different people that call it home or that use it and need to feel welcomed and have a great experience. So certainly the fans are one of those, and the players are another one, but there's also coaches and the visiting team and artists, like bands that come here and need to be able to have a good experience. So it's a three-dimensional puzzle that needs to be solved almost independently and simultaneously for all the different people that use the building. So in what ways is this an incredible fan experience? Well, the first thing is we pulled all the seats really, really close to the field, so there's not a bad seat in the house. And I'm really proud of that, because even in what they call the nosebleeds, it's a great seat. And then we supplemented that seat and that sort of view of the game with all these like wide variety of clubs and amenities and opportunities to upgrade. Like the area, for example, where the torch is basically a GA club. So anyone in the whole building can go enjoy that incredible view to the strip and the view back down to the field. And then of course we're sitting in one of the clubs right now. There's great suites and loges, and there's basically something for everyone here. Great bars, local food is sort of a part of the experience. And so that sort of richness and that layering of experiences is what makes a building really, really successful for the fans, because there's always something new to do here.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. From the player standpoint, similar sort of needs for them, but it's also split between the home team and the visiting team. So
you want one to have a bad experience?
Well, we yes,
Just kidding.
Kind of, but we have to be respectful. So the league won't let you the league won't let you paint the visiting locker room pink, for example, in order to mess with their mind. But the home team has to feel safe. They have to have good access to their locker room and out of their locker room. They have to have reasonable access to the crowd, protected and safe, but at the same time engaged. So that sort of duality is always a really challenging line to walk as a designer. So for example, in the club here, one of the ways that the players come onto the field is through the club. So the security guard will hold the crowd back, and then you get a glimpse and you get close to the players as they go onto the field. And then the other thing is for the visiting team, just to create an atmosphere of intimidation. So the way this crowd comes together and the volume that the crowd brings and the way the building sort of feels as you approach it, it was really important for the Raiders for that to be intimidating. So that, coming to play here as a visiting player was a scary thing to do.
I love it.
So yeah, the Raiders do call this the Death Star, which I love because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And the idea that this is an ominous, scary place to play, I thought it was kind of funny that they called it the Death Star. Of course, at the end of the movie, the Death Star gets blown up, but let's set that to the side. The idea that it feels like Darth Vader's home, like in sort of mysterious, I don't want to say evil, but like a mysterious dark place to be welcomed was interesting to me.
Well, I can't wait to hear the fans in here and how loud it must be.
Oh my God, it's going to be so loud in here, so loud in here. So I also designed NRG, which is, it was Reliant Stadium, now it's the home of the Texans in Houston. It was the first retractable roof stadium in the league, and it was the first time the NFL, that opening day was the first time the NFL had come back to Houston, and the crowd was just going off. And it was so loud in there that the broadcast guys said they couldn't hear what was happening in their headphones. And last year with COVID's opening, there was a kind of quiet, understated opening here, right? I'm very excited, for this fall when the crowd flows in. It's going to be epic in here. It's going to be so loud. Sure. Not just because the crowd's really close and it's really intense, but we have the roof and all the sound's going to bounce around. It's going to be phenomenal. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. So are they planning on doing that full-scale opening like at the beginning of the season, or is that still up in the air?
Truth is, I don't know. I hope it's full and open. it's not my place to say either way because I actually don't know. I'd hate to guess. But my God, I hope every seat's full. That would be amazing.
I have to ask, are you going to attend that game when they do it?
I hope so.
Okay.
I still need an invite.
That's funny.
No, I'll make a call. I hope I get to be there. And maybe be here for the Chiefs-Raiders games as well.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
What's next? So we might do a nightclub. I don't know. I've thought about doing, from a bar standpoint, I've thought about doing other bars in other cities. I'm on the fence about that because for me, whenever I do anything, it has to be done perfectly, and that requires a high degree of attention. And I'm afraid that if we open a bar in another city that I won't be able to be there every day and oversee every detail. And that's what I believe is a part of our collective bar's successes. But we're thinking about what we might want to do next, and there probably will be another project of some sort coming along. With regard to architecture, I have two main goals really, and this is as an entrepreneur. I want to continue to grow the business a little bit. I do not want to be a huge company. So we've almost hit my sort of sweet spot with regard to target size. So I'd love to grow a little bit more through really interesting projects. The most important thing though is for me to continue to sort of do the quality of work that I'm proud of. And I'm really happy to say that because of our size, we can be very selective in the projects that we endeavor to sort of be a part of. And then the transition, I have now built something that's bigger than I ever thought it would be. And, I think every entrepreneur has three options in what they want to do with their company. One, they could just close the doors and have a garage sale and be done. Two, they could sell their company, in which case they probably have to work for someone else for a while in order to bring value and transition to that sale. Or three, you can transition to the team that you've built. And I certainly hope my best option, the one I'm most focused on, is option three. I'm looking to build up my team to become the future of the company, whether my name stays on the door or not, and whether I go into work every day or not. I will say one last thing though. I believe that continuing to move and continuing to work is a really important ingredient to the fountain of youth, and I don't really have plans to just stop. I'm afraid that if I stop, I'm just gonna stop living, in some way. What I do is so integral, it's like breathing to me. This idea of creation and building something out of nothing is a part of my spirit, and I couldn't stop if I wanted to, but I would like to transition and change the way I do my work, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Did somebody bury a Chiefs flag in here?
They say that. That's part of the story. Yeah.
Is it actually part of the story, or is it publicity?
I think it might be publicity. Okay. I don't know. I mean, it's a famous story on Facebook. The Chiefs-Raiders rivalry is sort of, and I think some Chiefs fan, whether they actually got it in and did it, or whether they just said they did it, I don't know. I wasn't there that day. I couldn't.
You didn't
comment.
Do it?
I did not. Was not me. Was not me.
All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you coming out today.
Yeah.
And everybody, this is David Manica with Manica Architecture. Super fascinating guy. This is Chris Jones signing out.
Well, you may have noticed that we're in a new studio. This studio is actually constructed in order for us to start putting out weekly podcasts. We're really excited to do it. And one of the things that we're excited about doing is actually bringing business topics to you guys and business entrepreneurs. But more importantly, what we're focused around is that personal experience. We're going to be putting these out every week, so please stay tuned for them.